Hello everyone, welcome to English with Evelyn. In today's video, we'll study Aunt Jennifer's Tigers from class 12 NCERT reader Flamingo. And this poem has been written by Adrian Rich. This is Adrian Rich. Now, Adrian Rich was born in United States on 16 May 1929 and she passed away on 27 March 2012 in California, United States. She is an American poet, an essayist, and a feminist writer, and she's one of the most widely read and followed poets of the second half of the 19th, 20th century. And she was also a political activist and especially, an anti war activist. Now, Rich wrote several pieces that talk about the rights of women in society, and she openly expressed her outrage at the patriarchal nature of the society, and she became an icon for other women, hoping that continued proactive work against sexism is finally going to counteract it. In her work, in Snapshots of a Daughter-in-Law, she offered a critical analysis of the life of being both a mother and a daughter-in-law, and many women would readily relate to what she has written in this work. And another work, Diving into the Wreck, it was written in the early 70s, and this marks, a change that was beginning to take place. Her poetry was evolving, and her thoughts and her writings were evolving, and this is from where we see that change coming into her poem. And then, her tone starts to, darken, and when she's starting to talk about feminism and other, issues that were plaguing the society and especially the women. Now, she also wrote books and articles which again were raising a voice against, anti-feminist forces or, gender inequality. So some of her such works are Of Woman Born, Motherhood as Experience in Institution, Blood, Bread and Poetry, etc. And she wrote at length on the topic of white feminism within the feminist movement, and she dedicated a lot of chapters of her book, her famous book Blood, Bread and Poetry, to the subject of racism as well. Okay, so in the poem that we have chosen for today, in Aunt Jennifer's Tigers, she's talking about a woman's experiences in her married life, and when we read the poem, we can see, how sad and depressing the life has been. And she's never used these words even once. But it's Adrian Rich's talent. It is her style. It's her way of writing. It is her way of saying the unsaid, that you can see this undercurrent, in this entire poem. She's tried in this poem to explore the feelings of a woman who is living under the dominance of men. And this person that she's talking about, the subject, Aunt Jennifer, she has borne the burden of this unhappy life, and this burden goes with her to her grave as well. And the symbol is the ring that she is wearing. So the theme of the poem Aunt Jennifer's Tiger, it's about the problem of the suppression of women and their inability to express themselves and fight for their rights. And it also brings to the surface the various issues, especially, that a married woman had to fight with, her daily battles that she had to fight. And she would appear happy, secure, looked after from outside, but from within, she has been muted and she's been maimed, and no, nobody talks about this. And she herself, feels maybe, so burdened by the fact that she's being looked after, materially, that there is no will left in her to fight against it. And maybe, she thinks that it is against a moral code that she should fight against, and rise in rebellion against the person or people who are giving her the life that she's living. Okay, materially, supporting her. So Aunt Jennifer is the subject in the poem. She's a symbol, or a representative of the women all over the world. It's not just the white woman, it's the women all over the world who have been a victim of the patriarchal society, of the patriarchal system. So, through Aunt Jennifer, the poet not only talks about such women, but also she brings to surface in a very subtle manner their desire, the unspoken desire to be free, to be the owners of their life. So with this we move on to the poem now. The first stanza goes like this. Aunt Jennifer's tigers prance across a screen, bright topaz denizens of a world of green. They do not fear the men beneath the tree. They pace in sleek, chivalric certainty. Now in this stanza, the poet is talking about a lady, and she addresses this lady as Aunt Jennifer. And because she's an aunt, the poet must have observed her and seen her from up close, for a great part of her life. And this lady is embroidering a piece of cloth. It could be anything, it's not important what it was, but the design, the pattern that emerges. Okay, that the pattern is that of tigers who are moving and jumping around all over the fabric, and they are bright yellow in color, something that is missing from Aunt Jennifer's own life. The liveliness, the sprightliness, the colors, the vividness, all that is missing from her life. She is expressing that desire by choosing the colors with which she's embroidering the tigers. So the tigers are topaz stone, the color of the topaz stone, and the dense, beautiful green forest. That background, that's their home. And they are the proud and fearless citizens of the forest, which Aunt Jennifer is not. The house is hers, but she is not the proud and fearless resident in her own house. But the tiger is. Okay? Now, in this stanza, the poet has brought to surface the contrast between Aunt Jennifer and her tigers. See, the tigers are fearless, but this lady is not. She's a timid, meek housewife. The tigers are looking elegant, shining, and they own the place that they are, inhabiting. But this is not the case with Aunt Jennifer. Now let's look at the literary devices that have been used in the first stanza. So the rhyme scheme, which is the same throughout, is AABB. There is a use of anaphora, use of the same word in two consecutive lines. They do not, and they pace in. And use of topaz to describe the yellow color of the tigers. They are bright topaz. So this is a metaphor. Now the second stanza. Aunt Jennifer's fingers fluttering through her wool find even the ivory needle hard to pull. The massive weight of Uncle's wedding band sits heavily upon Aunt Jennifer's hand. So the fluttering fingers, they describe the fear. Okay, her fingers are quivering with fear. And maybe the husband doesn't approve of a lot of things that she does. So she is she's trembling, while she's embroidering this piece of cloth. And maybe there's something else which is plaguing her mind at this moment. Okay? And she's so scared, so afraid, so weak mentally that it's difficult for her to even pull her needle up and down. And her fingers are tired. Her fingers symbolize, her fearful life. You know, she's been tirelessly working and she's tired of it's not a tiredness in the physical sense, she's mentally and emotionally run down. And there's something else that the poet attracts, takes our attention to. It's the wedding ring. Now, this wedding ring is a symbol of the marriage, and it is sitting on a finger as a symbol of a marriage, and she calls it a burden. It's a burden. So this marriage is a burden. It's not a happy place. It's not her place, of bliss for Aunt Jennifer. She's faced so many torments and sufferings in her married life that this ring is like a heavy band on her trembling fingers. This is still a burden on her life. This ring on her hand. So this ring is a symbol of a marriage. So this ring as a burden tells us that her marriage is a burden because of the attitude of her husband towards her, because of the way that she's been treated all her life, because of the way in which she's been told to live her life. So this kind of living constantly, under someone else's supervision has been tormenting, and that has become a burden. So the rhyme scheme remains the same, and alliteration is there in this finger fluttering, where the first sound is repeated. Let's come to the third stanza. When aunt is dead, her terrified hands will lie, still ringed with ordeals she was mastered by. The tigers in the panel that she made will go on prancing, proud and unafraid. So the poet has now, sadly telling us that, you know, that this torment that Aunt Jennifer is undergoing is not going to end anytime soon. In fact, it's going to the grave with Aunt Jennifer. So through the design that she is, bringing to existence with her fingers through embroidery, we can sense her desire, but this desire, this wish, is not going to be granted to her. She will not achieve the freedom that she is giving to the tigers in her embroidery. She will eventually, take this burden with her to her grave. But she says that even in her grave, she will go with that ring, the ring which is a symbol of her torment, her status as a B grade citizen of or a person who doesn't have as much importance as her husband had in their marriage. So this ring is a proof of the tortures that she is phased from her husband. This ring is a symbol of the burdensome marriage that Aunt Jennifer has suffered all her life. So she'll go to the grave with this ring. And she continues to say, and she says that her desire of freedom and fearlessness will remain alive in these tigers. So she will go to the grave with this burden on her in her fingers. But she says that the embroidery that she's going to leave behind, that will always talk about, that will always say something that she was not able to, you know, put into words. Her desire of living a fearless life. These tigers will show that desire of Aunt Jennifer's. So the literary devices, again alliteration, the spur sound is repeated in prancing proud, and the rhyme scheme remains the same. So this was it, and with this we come to the end of the explanation of this poem. I hope this will be useful for a lot of you people there. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe the channel. Bye bye.